Hello everyone, today we have a brand new keyboard which really surprised me. This is the FinalKey. Before they were known as Fancytech. This is the FinalKey Origin65A. This is the FinalKey Origin65A keyboard kit that was sent over for review. So before we begin, again, this unit was sent over for review, but as usual, it will not affect my opinions. So I will try to be as objective as possible, but the hobby again in itself is very subjective. So that being said, this keyboard really surprised me. One of my followers in my YouTube channel requested for me to review this keyboard, and as I checked the Shopee page of Fancytech FinalKey, I saw this keyboard and I thought to myself, it's a bit too chunky. I didn't like the aesthetics of it at first glance. But when I browse through the specs, it's really nice. It checks a lot of enthusiast features that we look for. It's 65% layout, so you have the arrow keys there. It's gasket mounted with the palm plate material. Palm is really nice because it has that bounce and softness in the typing feel. Although in my experience, palm plate usually has a specific set of switches that really go well with it. It's south facing. It's VIA compatible. It has a knob and it has RGB, perky RGB. Ticks almost all of the features that I'm looking for in a budget board. So this falls at around 4,500 pesos bare bones. Do take note that you have to spend another extra on the stabilizer. It doesn't come with any stabilizers. The switches and the keycaps, which depending on your build could go anywhere. The total cost could go anywhere from around 7,000-8,000 to as much as 10,000 to 12,000 depending on the components that you choose to install. The final version that I will show you at the end of this video, I'm putting on some Yonki keycaps and some budget switches. The final cost would be around 8,000. So it's a good competitive price point for what it is. Before this keyboard, the GAS67 used to be my favorite budget keyboard of 2022. It's really a good keyboard with one major flaw. It has north-facing PCB and it doesn't have VIA compatibility, which not kind of a deal breaker right now, but some of us would be still looking for those features. And so when I saw this, I was like, okay, let me try it and see how it goes. So I messaged up FinalKey, asked if they have a review unit, and fortunately we do have a review unit, and here we are now. So let's go through the build process. What I like about this keyboard is really straightforward build process. Unlike other stacked acrylic keyboards on the budget side, my first Fancytech keyboard was the stacked acrylic Alice. I really don't enjoy building those kind of keyboards. Some might enjoy it. Me personally, I don't. This one, very straightforward. 3 pieces. It has the foot, which has a really nice touch into it. There's a golden Fancytech logo, the foot that supposedly will prevent this keyboard from sliding, and then the top and bottom case, and that's it. It has a daughter board. I forgot to mention that a while ago. It has a daughter board, which again really checks off all of the enthusiast features that you'd be looking for in a keyboard. So let's go to the build guide. So again, as I mentioned, pretty straightforward. Upon opening the box, you get a package with all the contents inside. So the top case, the palm plate, the foams, the feet, and a PCB with knob in it. The Ziploc portion over there contains all the screws that you will need, the gaskets, and 2 sets of knobs, as well as the Fancytech logo. So you strip off the logo, and this one had to clean it off and put it at the back foot using a double-sided tape. There are two sets of screws, smaller and longer ones, so the first thing that I did was to screw in the feet of the case using the smaller screws. After that is the placement of the logo at the back. So again, double-sided tape, pretty straightforward. Just have to clean it really well. It's a fingerprint magnet. The next step is putting in the gaskets. While most people would prefer to put the gaskets on the plate, I prefer putting the gaskets on the case itself. Just makes it easier for me if in the future I'm gonna be using a different plate material. So I do it this way. Note, please do take note, there's only an exact number of gaskets provided. Be very careful when stripping these off from their paper sheet, because sometimes if you're not careful you could rip off the gaskets apart. Next, we put in the daughter board. Again, really straightforward, 2 pieces of small screws. I love the fact that this keyboard has a daughter board. Makes it a lot more flexy, more room for bounce and flex for the PCB. Probably the most difficult part of the build is the stabilizers, which again, it's not my favorite part. So I use for this one the Duroc V2 screw-in stabilizers. This fortunately supports screw-in stabilizers. You just have to lube the stabilizers, wire balance them, plus or minus the Holy mod. And this is the part that took a lot of my time, but the rest, again, very straightforward. Next is simply assembling the plate PCB sandwich. So you can choose to use the foams and all. The PCB foam is an EVA material. Again, there are 2 options. It's either you put it in before putting in the stabilizers. I don't want to do that because if I have to remove it for another configuration, I would have to remove all the stabilizers. So what I do is I simply cut into the foam so that the space with the stabilizers wouldn't have any foam in it. And in my experience, it doesn't matter. I don't really want the foam, the PCB foam, to be in those areas anyway. Now the plate doesn't have any standoffs, but the switches will hold them together. Just do take note with the Duroc V2s. Initially, I was having a hard time placing in the area of the space bar. I had to force a little bit, nudge it a little bit, but eventually it gave in and everything worked fine. So after which, it's simply just putting in the daughter board, the JST cable, and closing the case and screwing them together using the 8 pieces of long screws. And then after that, of course, place in your knob. So straightforward and simple. Really easy build guide. I slapped in some Duroc V2 stabilizers, which are lubed and wire balanced, and keycaps and switches. These are the PBT Fans Neon. How does it feel? How does it type? And how does it sound? Really good. The typing feel is amazing. The typing feel is very soft, bouncy, but not too much. And what I do like is that this keyboard, for some reason, among the budget boards that I've tried, has an isolated bounce and flex into it. This is something that I find in other higher end keyboards, not in budget keyboards. Usually budget keyboards, when you press it down, the whole assembly, the whole PCB goes down. The whole PCB and assembly goes down. This one has an kind of isolated flex and bounce, meaning when I press on this side, the whole thing doesn't go down. It's more of this side only. So I hope you see it in the video. Really nice, really impressed by it. The sound profile, boy oh boy. I don't even have to mod it. I ran it at the stock configuration, which has an EVA PCB foam, which is not my favorite, but surprisingly I like it here. EVA PCB foam. It has a plate foam, no other foams. It doesn't even need a lowercase foam. And I didn't even put a tempos tape mod, and it sounded really good. It sounded really good. Amazing. One of my favorite things about this is also that it's VIA compatible. So you can download the JSON file. I do have it, but Fancytech can give it to you as well. And in the JSON file, you will be able to see that on the second layer, which you can activate by pressing this key, everything has already been programmed intuitively. So you get this up and down to control the brightness of the RGB. This controls the toggle on and off. This controls the saturation of your lighting. This controls the hue of your lighting. This is for function. And basically what's good about being VIA compatible is that you can simply reprogram all the keys to your need. All right. So that's it. It's really a good keyboard. Really surprised, and it's currently now my favorite keyboard of 2022. Doc, how about aesthetically? You told me that the chunky boy look was one of the things that made you think twice on getting this keyboard. Ironically, once it was in my desk, I'm loving the look. It's very unique. It's not the usual flavor that you get from my mechanical keyboards. The very thick bezels, the side profile, the back of the keyboard, I love it. It looks nice. It really does. I'm really happy with this keyboard. The final question then is, this keyboard, if you think about it, will cost twice as much as the GAS67, because the GAS67 goes for around 3,000 pesos with stabilizers in them. This is around 4,500 without stabilizers. So if you put in a good stabilizers, maybe around 5,500. Is the double the price worth it? Don't get me wrong, the GAS67 is a good keyboard. The question is south facing important for you? Is VIA compatibility important for you? Those two primarily, and if your answer is yes, then I would say it's worth it. For me, it's worth it. I want the south-facing PCB. I want the isolated typing feel. I want the VIA compatibility. This keyboard has more heft to it than the GAS67, which I like. I like my keyboard having heft. Yeah, it's worth it. So, really awesome product, FinalKey. This keyboard is very, very underrated. It hasn't had much review aside from the one my friend Cavite Tech Johan Villanueva put out a few days ago. So do check out his review as well. Very detailed build guide and different configurations. That's it. So thank you for watching, guys. Lots of content coming up in the channel. Awesome 2,000 subscribers. Let's keep this channel growing, and I will see you in the next video.